On the streets, people cheered. The Sudanese army had entered the city of Wad Madani, a key town in Al-Jazira state, after dislodging RSF fighters. Wad Madani had been under the control of the Rapid Support Forces since late 2023. Citizens who appeared in the celebratory footage shared by the army said the recapture of the town was a big relief.
Those people exhausted us in Madani. They looted our belongings and warehouses. They broke into our houses, and in case they found nothing, they beat people. As women, we were the ones going out in search of food and drinks, leaving our sons at home. The RSF left us with nothing.
Safety is restored, thank God, with the control of the army and its allies inside Al-Jazira state. We are talking to you from inside Madani. We thank God this city is safe. People can go back to their homes. God is great.
But some residents are worried that the RSF might stage a swift counter-attack. Wad Madani is viewed as a strategic town because it is at the crossroads of crucial highways linking several states. It's also the nearest key city to the capital, Khartoum. The army called the gain a great victory and urged people to return to Wad Madani. It said it was working to clean up rebel-held parts of the city as well as recapturing more strategic areas.
We will not stop, but we will advance quickly and urgently. Soon, every inch in this country will be cleansed from the traitors. We urge people to return, as Al-Jazira state is safe, and the restoration of services will not be delayed. We are committed to supporting the governor in providing the basic necessities to facilitate the citizens' return.
Taking full control of Al-Jazira state would be the Sudanese army's biggest breakthrough since it took control of the major city of Omdurman in the state of Khartoum nearly a year ago. While the RSF leader Mohamed Hamdan Dagalo acknowledged defeat, he insisted the battle was not over. He promised to regain Wad Madani, promising victory to his troops. Sudan has been raged by fighting since April 2023, when fighting broke out between the army and the RSF. Caroline B., CGTN.
So what's next in Sudan after the Army's recapture of the strategic town of Wad Madani? To broaden this discussion, we are now joined by Dr. Hassan Kanenje, the director of the Horn Institute for Strategic Studies. Doctor, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us here on Africa Live. What's likely behind the military momentum of the Sudanese Army?
There's a number of factors. One, there's been an apparent operational overstretch by RSF, in which I think it has tried to commit its forces across the country without sufficient equipment, as well as the military, assets to be able to undertake the war. But secondly, there is also an increasing international isolation by RSF, and in the wake of what just happened with regard to US sanctions, there is a likelihood that fewer and fewer of the partners are committing, especially military hardware, and to the RSF. Now, that coupled with the incremental success that has been registered by, I think, the military, it's pushing RSF, I think, in some kind of a corner. And perhaps it may be time we may witness a shift in the balance of forces that perhaps may put the two parties into a negotiation.
Well, further to that, Doctor, what's the likely implication of the fall of Wad Madani and the Sudanese army gaining the upper hand in the conflict?
One of the possible ways in which we're going to see this unfold is there's going to be, I think, less likelihood for the Sudanese army to want to negotiate, and perhaps a little more likelihood for the RSF to actually seek to be able to protect, secure certain agreements before perhaps they lose more ground. But increasingly, you also may see pushback by RSF in which perhaps it may fuel the current conflict, before things cool down, in part because both parties may want to actually secure some, strength, at the negotiating table, and therefore, to be able to do that, it may escalate it. But also, we're going to see chances of increased humanitarian, crisis in case of escalation. Even though some of the areas have been liberated by the Sudanese army, you may see some access when it comes to humanitarian, support in some of those areas have been close to about cut off, by RSF.
Well, let's talk about that humanitarian situation. Thousands of civilians have been reportedly displaced following the intensifying clashes between the Army and the RSF, as you mentioned. How is this affecting the humanitarian situation in Sudan, and what is the current state?
As we speak, more than half, or more than 30 million Sudanese are in urgent need of humanitarian support. Above 70% of the healthcare system is virtually, broken. Logistics is literally, non-existent in part because of the crippling, conditions that have been imposed by the war. And it is, I think, noteworthy to point out that even the United Nations has noted that this is the worsening humanitarian, conditions that exist in the world, but not just in the world today, but actually in recent history. I think both the region and the continent has not seen such a critical humanitarian situation that, like the one that we see, existing in Sudan today. And so I think there is urgent need for some kind of intervention to ensure that not only do these parties move towards a settlement, but there is the efforts at humanitarian assistance should be doubled, both by the international community as well as the current actors in Sudan.
All right, Dr. Hassan Kanenje, Director, the Horn Institute for Strategic Studies, thanks for that.